Right, let's go ahead. So, hello everyone, and welcome to our fourth AMA. During this AMA, we are going to cover the token launch, which is being eagerly awaited by many community members. I know we've built a lot of excitement around in the past couple of months, and everyone was looking forward to token launch. The core team spent quite some amount of time in the last couple of months to research around the various options for launching a token. During this time, we brainstormed around several strategies. We looked at what other DAOs did. We tried to see what we can learn from the successes and failures of other DAOs, and how can we best plan the token launch in order to uh, build something which gets us into the right position to launch our main offering, which is assurance NFTs, while also being beneficial to every participant during the launch phase. So we evaluated quite some strategies. Uh, we saw successes, we saw failures, and eventually we finalized an approach that we feel is quite unique in its own way. We took bits from one protocol called GIDI and combined it with our own tokenomics to come up with a launch strategy, which we feel is the most ideal one, which is best suited for our protocol given the goals that we have uh, for growth in future. So before I move ahead, I'd like to thank the community for their patience uh, with us while we were researching, and we hope that what we've finalized is something that the community would like as well. So let's go ahead and check the uh, methods that we considered for token launch. Now, these methods are the most common methods that are used by other DAOs and widely used in crypto industry for launching a new token. We would go through each of these methodologies, and also we try to explain why we eliminated or discarded a certain launch methodology. Uh, the first method that we considered was initial Discord offering. Now, this is a launch strategy that has been used by various DAOs, uh, wherein the DAOs offer private tokens in exchange for some stable coins or other reserve tokens to a whitelisted list of addresses who participate in the IDO. Uh, this is quite a good strategy, given that it allows a DAO to raise quite some amount of initial funding, uh, which is hugely beneficial for bootstrapping the protocol. But it comes with its own cons, which we realized after looking at other protocols. The biggest problem with this strategy is the possibilities of whales accumulating large amounts of tokens, uh, which they using their private tokens, which they acquired during the IDO, and then using it to dump on other community members when the price of token skyrockets uh, at a later phase. We saw that this happened with protocols like Olympus and Klima, where the whales had already got access to a huge amount of token because of what they got their hands on during the IDO. Uh, and when the price of tokens unexpectedly skyrocketed, it created a massive sell pressure, which was taken advantage of by these whales, which eventually led to a disastrous fall in prices and eventually the community losing trust in these protocols. So, in order to avoid such possibilities of whales dumping in our protocol and jeopardizing the future of our protocol, we had to discard this particular method of initial Discord offering as a launch strategy. So the second method that we considered was a copper launch. So this is again very widely used in the crypto industry. It gives you a huge exposure as there are crypto natives who are constantly on looking on for new token launches on copper. Uh, we could also go on a price discovery route if we go with copper, where the liquidity balancer pools would adjust weightages for tokens and uh, would give us a good opportunity for discovering the price of a token or demand for a token. But there was a very basic fundamental problem with copper launch, because of which we could not use this as a launch strategy. And that problem was the amount of liquidity that it needs to launch an LBP on copper. And since we are bootstrapping with our own funds, uh, we thought it would be wiser for us to use our own funds to initialize liquidity pools for and the markets for a protocol rather than going for a copper launch. So we discarded this method because we didn't have since we are not taking any external investments either. We thought bootstrapping with our own funds, it wouldn't be wise to go for a copper launch. So we discarded this second method as well. There was one more method called batch auction or selling through our DApp, which was considered. A few DAOs did go down this route. Now, this is not very widely used, but we, as per our observations, some DAOs were able to raise quite some amount of funding through batch auction. What happens in a batch auction is that a fixed number of tokens are put on sale on the website, and investments without actually putting a price on the token. Deposits are invited for, and in terms of stable coins, let's say DAI or USDC, and for a fixed time frame, for let's say for 24 or 48 hours. And at the end of the batch auction, the amount of funds that got accumulated during that 48-hour time frame decides the price of the token eventually, and then the tokens get distributed pro rata to the depositors. This was a good launch strategy. As far as the raising of funds is concerned, we saw some DAOs rose close to $1 million in funding with this strategy. But there was a very basic implication with this, due to which we could not go ahead using a batch auction, was that because we are not a pseudonymous team anymore, we have our real profiles and our real names attached to this protocol. We have to take care of legalities involved. Uh, Going down the batch auction route exposes us to certain fundamental security laws or security requirements, uh, which uh, which for which we have to register with the SEC and go through that process, which we were not ready for at this stage. So, because of securities laws implications involved with batch auction, we discarded this method for launch as well, and we thought of another idea. So, let's go ahead and check what is the idea that we thought of. So, the solution that we thought of is inspired from a token called Giddy. Uh, so we basically studied their tokenomics closely, and we realized that the way Giddy tokenomics are designed, they give us the best protection in terms of legalities as far as securities laws are concerned, as well as also helping us to do the launch in a way where there is a gradual adoption and a controlled rollout of the token, which evades any spikes during the initial phases of the protocol as far as the supply is concerned, or the price is concerned as well. This would help us to build some trust with the community while also helping us to put our token into as many hands as possible. Uh, so we decided, we eventually, we thought about this quite a bit, and we combined it with our own tokenomics, which are an Olympus fork, and came up with a launch strategy, which we believe would be the best suited for our protocol. So let's see what the launch involves. Uh, so as I said, the launch is going to be multi-phase. So let's see what the phases are. The first phase is going to be streaming. So during the streaming phase, what the protocol is going to do is it's going to initialize a liquidity pool with its own funds. Uh, it will at the same time also launch a few staking pools uh, for various tokens that could be staked by the community. The stakers of these tokens in the staking pools would receive Pana at a fixed rate per second. So Pana would be streamed at a fixed rate per second from, from every pool, every staking pool in which depositors have staked their stakers have staked their assets. So there would be a staking pool. Let's say there could be a staking pool for USDC. There could be a staking pool for DAI. There could be a staking pool for the liquidity pool tokens. There could be a staking pool for Pana itself. There would be different reward rates at for these different staking pools. Each reward rate being different and managed by the governance. Uh, so the governance is going to set the reward rates on these pools based on the supply and demand, and each pool will stream Pana at that rate per second for the stakers. So since there could be multiple stakers in a single staking pool, the staking rewards, which is the Pana token, stream per second would be pro rata based on the amount of stakes that a staker has in the pool. So during this phase, one important thing that stands out, or something that I'd like to emphasize here, is that the stakes, the assets that have been staked by the stakers still belong to the stakers. They do not belong to the protocol. So the protocol is not going to make use of these staked assets in any way. They still belong to the staker, and the staker is free to withdraw the assets at any time that they like. What this means is that when the staker withdraws their assets, they would stop receiving any further streamed Pana uh, from that point on. This also means that the Pana that they got streamed so far while their asset was staked still remains with them, which essentially means it's going to be a free token for them. So this is the most important point, that because these stakers can stake their assets and withdraw it at any time, the amount of Pana that they received during that period is essentially free. They didn't have to pay any amount of money to get the token. The reason why we're doing this is because we want Pana to get into as many hands as possible, uh, and also because we'll have some lucrative reward rates for liquidity pool tokens, staking pools. This would also help us to uh, grow our liquidity pool size, which would make Pana widely available, so that audiences or communities or new community participants would find it easier to enter the protocol because of a good amount of availability of the Pana token. We also want one of the other goals is also that we want this token to be adopted by masses. So since a free token for a free token, there's not a requirement for payment of another token. Rather, it's just staking and withdrawing. We believe that more and more people would be interested in getting their hands on free stuff, as much of it as possible. So that is one of the reasons that we are going with this strategy. So that is what the first phase during this launch would be, and would be the free streaming of Pana tokens to anyone who is ready to deposit or stake their assets for a certain time period or while the phase is going on. So once we have a good amount of confidence that the growth of liquidity pool has been healthy and Pana is now a good amount of Pana is now in circulation, we would go on with the next phase, which would be a kind of a hybrid phase with a mix of streaming, which is the same from phase one, and we'll add to it what we call bonding. So for those who've gone through our Git book, they already know what bonding is. Or for those who have those who are crypto natives and have crypto experience, they might also be aware of what bonding is. But to put it in simple terms, bonding is simply uh, where the user deposits a certain asset, a reserve, let's say a reserve token, or let's say a stable coin, and in return for that asset, they get the native token of the DAO at a discounted rate from the market. So we will be launching bonds for liquidity pool tokens at this stage, where anyone who can stake liquidity pool tokens with the protocol, anyone who can bond the liquidity pool tokens with the protocol, will be able to get the Karsha token at a discounted price compared to the market. So one thing to note about here is since there are two phases, a mix of two phases in the second phase where we are streaming as well as bonding. We need we I'd like to point out that streaming is going to roll out Pana, whereas bonding is going to roll out Karsha. So if you've already gone through the Git book, you also already know that Karsha is nothing but wrapped staked Pana, which is earning rebase rewards behind the scenes in terms of Pana. Also, Karsha is a governance token. If a community member holds Karsha token, they would be able to participate in governance decisions and also able to vote on them. So that is one major difference between streaming and bonding, where streaming can give you Pana, but bonding will give you Karsha. At this phase, we would also reduce the rewards for streaming so that more and more people would be attracted towards bonding. The reward rates for bonding would be attractive at this stage. The reason why we are doing a hybrid methodology over here is because we want to take make this phase a training ground for our new users to get trained with the bonding mechanics, because bonding is going to be the primary mechanism through which the protocol is going to mint new tokens in future. And also it is a very important mechanism to understand for our users if they want to participate in our main offering, which we call assurance NFTs, that would be launched in future. So bonding is a very critical piece of mechanism for our protocol, and anyone who wishes to participate in it should be very well acquainted with the ins and outs of bonding and how it functions. So we want to use this as a training ground for our users, so that they get the knack of it. They should get the ins and outs of bonding, and while also keeping streaming on during this phase, we are giving more time for our staking pool stakers to plan their withdrawals of their assets, so that once the streaming mode is turned off, they would be able to calculate what amount of free Pana they would receive and also withdraw their assets at the same time. So that is one of the primary reasons for having a hybrid phase, and eventually we would switch to the bonding only mechanic, where streaming would be completely turned off. At this point, the token is not available for free anymore. At this point of time, anyone who wants to get their hands on new tokens either have to buy it from the liquidity pool or have to bond some token with the protocol to get Karsha at a discounted price. So this is where we are ready for the next phase of our protocol. We would have we are hoping that we'll be having a very healthy growth of the liquidity pool during this phase, so that more and more people are able to enter the protocol smoothly, enter or exit the protocol smoothly. So during this bonding phase, there is one more important feature that we would turn on, uh, which is called the loss ratio pegging mechanism. Now, this is a very critical mechanism, and more details about it can be found in our Git book as well. So, loss ratio pegging mechanism is going to ensure that it is going to work in coordination with the bonding mechanism, where with each bond, it is going to ensure that new tokens that are get going into circulation, or the growth in total supply uh, in the liquidity pools is going to stay within a channel around a fixed ratio, which we feel is going to be, which we have right now decided is going to be 22.5%, typically because 22.5% is the ideal insurance loss ratio. And since we are going to be an insurance as well, as our mission is to serve the underserved people around the world, we are going to maintain a 22.5% loss ratio or a channel around it in our liquidity pools. So this loss ratio pegging mechanism is something that we will turn on at this point, so that the markets work as per the set loss ratio. Now, 22.5% is just an ideal loss ratio, but ideally it could be anything depending upon the market conditions and is subject to fine tuning. So to summarize the three phases, the first phase, which is streaming, where we would again I'd go over it again. During this phase, we would launch the liquidity pool with funds from the DAO. We will have multiple pools for staking multiple assets, and we'll also stream a Pana token to the stakers at a rate per second, which would be decided by the governance and is modifiable by the governance as well. Pro rata distribution would take place for stakers, where each staker would get the Pana token in proportion with the assets that they have staked. We would have different stream rates for different pools, which would be set by the governance again. This would be based on demand and supply and the route that the protocol is going to take, uh, to ensure a healthy growth of the liquidity pools while at the same time benefiting the stakers as well. Uh, because the depositors are going to be able to unstake their assets at any time, it's going to be a free token. And during this phase, we want to get Pana out to as many people as possible. Moving on to the hybrid stage, we would have streaming and bonding working together. We would gradually be shifting to bonding to receive Karsha. Free streaming would continue, but at a lower reward rate compared to bonding. There would be opportunity for new users to get trained with bonding mechanics, how it works, and how they could receive their token at the end of the vesting cycle and at a discounted price to the compared to the market price. This would give additional time for stakers to plan their withdrawals, where they know that streaming is going to be turned off. at a certain point in time in future, and they need to plan their withdrawals or set certain targets for the amount of free Pana they want to accumulate before streaming ends. So that is important for streaming stakers as well. So this stage would act as a preparatory stage for switching to a bonding only mechanism where streaming would be completely turned off. Uh, and this phase is also expected to speed up the growth of liquidity pools because we are going to have higher reward rates for staking of liquidity pool tokens during streaming as well as during bonding. We are going to mostly accept LP tokens for people to be able to achieve discounted Karsha. So because of the need for LP tokens and because of the demand for LP tokens for getting new tokens minted out of the protocol, we believe that liquidity pools will see a healthy growth during this phase, with new liquidity always entering the pools. Finally, we come to bonding, where streaming will be completely halted. There would be no more free token available. All the stakers into these staking pools would be returned their staked assets. At this point, the only way to acquire new token would be through bonding and acquiring Karsha through bonding. The acquired Karsha keeps earning rebase rewards, which would be in terms of Pana, and the token is going to be backed by the liquidity that is there in the liquidity pools. Now, this is a preparatory phase for launching assurance NFTs. It is important for assurance NFTs that bonding is properly understood by our community, because the primary mechanism when it comes to assurance NFTs is bonding, because assurance NFTs can be bought only through bonding, and premiums in assurance NFTs can only be paid through bonding, where we'll be expecting naked bonds with stable coins in order to accumulate Karsha. So community will pay premiums using stable coins. Uh, Essentially, they'd be buying a bond. When I say they'd be paying premiums, and buying of that bond would accumulate Karsha for them in their assurance NFT. So loss ratio pegging, as explained beforehand, that this mechanism is a crucial mechanism in supply control for our token. We would make sure that our token's supply always lies within a channel surrounding 22.5%. Again, I want to point out that this percentage is an ideal percentage and is subject to change as per how the protocol progresses. But this would help dampen the slippage effect during large parametric claims that happen in case a certain event occurs, like earthquake or flooding, when a lot of people uh, are exiting the protocol through mass selling. Uh, so this would help them, because the supply would always be in control, and protocol would initiate a buyback uh, or also roll out the tokens as needed from its own treasury, from its own master treasury. This would help in maintaining a healthy liquidity pool where slippage is to a minimum. So, as we said, that this threshold, if necessary, could be adjustable by the DAO governance as well, as based upon how the protocol is progressing. Coming on to the benefits of this launch methodology, as I've already discussed, not going down the route that other protocols took, we have reduced the possibility of whales accumulating huge amounts of tokens during initial Discord offering, or when the token is cheap, or when during the initial phases it is widely available, and also cheaply available. Whales would not be able to uh, accumulate huge amounts of tokens because our strategy is going to be rolling out Pana at a rate which is slow and steady, decided by the governance based on buying patterns in the market, as well as based on the direction in which the market is going. So this reduces the possibility of anyone accumulating huge amounts of token and later on taking advantage of a spike in price to possibly dump on others and eventually uh, causing damage to protocol and community members. The second thing it gives us is a favorable, slow and steady adoption of the token, where the governance would decide the rate at which the tokens would be streamed, and we are going to keep it so that there is a slow and steady adoption of the protocol, a slow and steady rollout of the token in as many hands as possible. We've charted a route to mass adoption through free streaming. Because this is free stuff, we would believe that many people would be interested in getting their hands on as much Pana as possible, simply because they are not having to pay any price for the token, regardless of whether the protocol succeeds in their mission or not, regardless of where the price goes after the launch is over. But still, it's just free stuff. You don't have to pay anything for it. So we believe this would be a very good enough reason for many early participants to get their hands on as much Pana as possible, uh, and leading to a huge adoption of our token. This also ensures the availability of liquidity in the pools, which means that as we already saw, streaming and bonding are designed in a way that liquidity pool tokens, uh, demand for liquidity pool tokens increases because of their need to get new tokens from the protocol. Uh, this ensures that more and more people are providing liquidity to the liquidity pools and also using the streamed Pana to provide liquidity to the liquidity pools in a bid to get their hands on more Pana. It will lead to a good growth of the liquidity pools, which would prepare us, which would give us a good platform to launch assurance NFTs for the protocol. At the end of this, the community would be well trained with the bonding mechanism. They would know the market, the ins and outs of bonding mechanisms, and also how to trade the token in the liquidity pools, or how to get hold of LP tokens. All these uh, all these steps are essential for us to prepare the community to embrace the usage of assurance NFTs, which is going to be our main offering, where we would have syndicate participants as well as the underserved people who are in need of assurance. So, all in all, this launch strategy is something that we feel is the most ideal and most suited to our requirements, and also would be the most beneficial to the entire community as well, uh, where our token would be hugely adopted from the community by the community, and also uh, we would have masses join in every other day. So that's about it, and I'd move on to. I know many of you would have questions and would like to uh, you'd like to take up a few questions if there are any. Uh, be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Chancellor Group. We there's been quite a few questions that we've had on the Q&A channel. I think most of them have been answered.
All right, let me just have a glance through the Q&A section. Uh, it is Pana that is streamed and not Karsha. Yeah, it's going to be Pana that is going to be streamed, and Karsha can be acquired through bonding. Uh, Coins that can be staked. This is going to be something that is yet to be decided upon. But as far as we can say at this stage, depending upon our chain of choice, we would be having staking pools for the most reputable coins on that chain, with which is also having a high amount of liquidity available on that chain. So it would be around 5 to 8 such stable coins, maybe, for which we'll have separate staking pools, and a staking pool for LP tokens would surely be there. Converting Pana to Karsha, the DApp is not going to allow that. The Karsha to Pana is going to be something that is going to be allowed. That is, unwrapping a token would be allowed, but wrapping a token will not be allowed. The only way to get Karsha, that is the governance coin, is going to be through bonds. Uh, is going to be through bonding only by design. So there is not going to be a way to convert Pana to Karsha later. So yeah, there's a concern around free tokens negatively impacting price. I'd like to emphasize over here that the free token does not like with free token we are also having supply control mechanisms in place, and the rate at which the free token is going to be streamed is also something that is going to be controlled by the governance. So the all in all, we are not much worried about a negative impact on price. Actually, we are not worried about price much because we have the supply control mechanism, or what we also call the loss ratio pegging mechanism, in place, which is going to ensure that the supply of the token in the open market always stays within a channel which is decided by the governance. And because of that, the scarcity factor is always going to be there. And even if the price goes through its ups and downs during different phases of the life cycle of the protocol, it will automatically recover because of this mechanism working behind the scenes and keeping the supply of the token under control. So that is something we would have to look. I'd suggest more reading on the loss ratio pegging mechanism for anyone who has concerns around price of the token uh, getting impacted in any way. Uh,
Well,
for
and to add to that, we'll also be having another article be coming out soon that will cover some of that loss ratio pegging as well. So that will help with some understanding there.
Yeah, that's correct. Additionally, for someone who can read code or who's a developer, we have our codes open sourced, and it's all available on GitHub to read. So I'd encourage anyone who can read code to go ahead and read the codes on GitHub. That would be helpful in understanding this as well. There's a question around streaming rate or streaming limit.
Yeah,
We
ZX, you had something that you wanted to add related to the whole conversation about streaming and stuff, right? So,
It,
uh,
yeah,
something. Yeah, sorry.
I have something to it about price action and uh, how free tokens can be can influence and and price, right? So basically, at the end of the day, what drives price is the demand, right? So we are building, we are trying to build something new, and hopefully it would be very, it would be useful, and people will use that. So if our protocol would be in demand, so that would be create demand to our tokens eventually. And so I'm not worried about the free tokens, because it's just a way to distribute and avoid complications with security laws, because what was discussed even initially with by Chandragupta, uh, we would face some implications from security law and mm, security laws, and another way to avoid that is to, for example, to block United States uh, from participating in token launch, right? We certainly want to avoid that, and do not block or introduce some roadblocks for people inside the United States, like using VPN or something like that, to avoid to avoid uh, being blocked. And we want to give everyone uh, opportunity to participate. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Anything from your side, Gigi?
No, nothing pretty much. I think the whole conversation kind of started around how can we get all the community participants, how can we give them Pana and not bring restrictions around who can participate and who cannot participate. And that is why we are going down this whole approach that's being done by Giri and others to make sure that the tokens are available to as many people as possible, and then we are able to reward people who are staking with us. Yeah, I think we have one more question in the channel right now. Uh, ZX or Chandragupta, anybody want to take that up? So the question is regarding, I think we're just speaking about that Giri. So
Yeah, so there is going to be no streaming limit as far as our protocol is concerned. It purely depends on the there's no cap. We are an infinite supply token, and it's going to stay that way. But we don't have any limits as to streaming tokens. Fixed number adjustment of rates would be there, but there won't be a cap on number.
Yeah, we want to decide on actual rate at a later phase before the launch. Maybe consulting with the community, and that would be announced a bit later. But as of now, we don't have any specific numbers about rate.
yeah, great question so far. It's these are some of the questions that we would kind of request the community to keep challenging us with, so we can help answer those questions. And if there's something for us to learn that we might have to adjust, we are open to make those adjustments. So please keep the questions and comments coming.
So I guess we've answered most questions on the Q&A channel. Would any other participant want to ask any other question? It can just be anything. It can be anything simple as well, or something that you're not very sure or are confused. Would be happy to answer. Right. It seems I did a great job then. Seems the community has been able to understand my explanation pretty well. But if there's any questions, even post this AMA, please feel free to post them on our Q&A channel or the general channel, and core team members would be very happy to answer the questions and also guide in the best way possible.
Yeah, we'll be posting this session in YouTube. Thank you so much, Chandragupta, for running this session. But if you're not able to get this question now, please go ahead and ask your questions at a later point in time, in either in the general channel or Q&A. We'll try to answer your questions as and when you post them.
All right, thank you everyone for attending the AMA, and we'll be looking forward to meet everyone in the upcoming AMA. Please do subscribe to our Discord. If please get other your friends as well to subscribe to our Discord who are not already there, and keep following our Medium articles. There's quite a few coming up in the pipeline. And with questions, please keep them coming. Thank you, everyone. See you in the upcoming AMA.
Okay, thank you, Chandragupta.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.